Hello, this is Socially Triggered, and this video is going to be a little different, but it's something that I really want to talk about that I don't see anyone else talking about, and it's the fear of failure. This is my 20th year in business, and I've had a wild ride. I've been in states where it looked like I was going to be destitute, broke, near starvation. And then I had moments where it looked like I was going to become the next Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates. And then I've had all that success all taken away from me. So I've had it all, like where I've been up, down, all in between. And I've had to rebuild my business many, many times. And this is the normal life of an entrepreneur. And it isn't easy. However, I've learned a lot from it. And the biggest thing I've learned is not to fear failure. I've failed often, but as cliched as it might sound, I've learned from these failures and gained resilience. There's an important lesson that isn't taught in school nowadays. Today, in an age of political correctness, we are taught that failure and being wrong is a crime. If my failures I own. And often they are the result of me doing the wrong thing or saying the wrong thing. However, if I wasn't allowed to say the wrong thing or make mistakes, I would never have learned to do the right thing. We learn through trial and error. People fear failure, especially in the age of political correctness, because if you say or do the wrong thing, you can have your life destroyed. A good example of this is the story of Patrick Brown in Ontario. He was the Ontario, Canada political candidate who was poised to become the next Premier of Ontario. However, just 4 months before the election that would see him reach the height of his political career, there was an accusation made against him. The woman claimed that she had met Patrick Brown at a bar, and they had exchanged pleasantries, and he seemed interested in her, and he said that he could help her get into bars later that night, but she never acted on it. And months passed, and according to her story, she said that she reached out to him, and she needed a job. She was in university at the time. He was in his 30s, and she reached out to him to see if he could offer her a job. And he said yes. He was running a campaign and he needed staffers to help him. So she worked for him. And during many months of working together, they went to a party together. She had some alcohol to drink, and he didn't drink. But he invited her home, and the situation was they ended up in his bedroom. He started kissing her and climbed on top of her, kissing her. And she just wasn't interested. And she asked him to stop. He stopped. And she left. Now that's the story. So the reason it's considered such a bad thing was that she had been drinking. He had taken advantage of her. And that's what I'm saying. Like, people make mistakes. But he's not allowed to make mistakes. Nobody's allowed to make mistakes anymore. That we're not allowed just to kiss a person, be spontaneous. I can't imagine any relationship where you make the assumption that the person might be interested. You might be wrong in that assumption. You kiss them. If they're not interested, they say stop, you stop. But there shouldn't be a crime in that. This man's life was completely destroyed. He had to resign from politics, all because of him kissing a girl when she wasn't into it. And this is what I'm talking about, this legitimate fear of failure, that we have to fear saying or doing the wrong thing. Because in this age of political correctness, if you say or do the wrong thing, you can have your life destroyed. And it's very serious, because in this environment, none of us can learn, because we have to be able to make mistakes. Of course, there should be consequences if we do something extremely bad, but simple mistakes like the one that Patrick Brown made shouldn't be like something that destroys his career. Now, one of the things that I see often is When you see interviews of people nowadays, it's a battle. Instead of like being a discussion where people are trying to legitimately learn about what the person actually thinks, it's a battle. The interviewer, his goal is to expose that person, to show them as a flawed person, to show how corrupt and evil they are, not to try to understand what they actually think. And they can think the wrong thing. That's my point. People can think the wrong thing and should be allowed to think the wrong thing. If there is no discussion, you can't learn the truth. You can't correct the wrong and make it right, because you have to be able to discuss it. But as I said, what will happen is people will go into these interviews. Like I look at the one of Jordan Peterson and Kathy Newman. Her whole point of the interview was to categorize him as an evil man, as a sexist, misogynist, whatever, as somebody that was deplorable. But she should have, instead of that, allowed him to speak, allowed him to make mistakes, allowed him to correct those mistakes. This is what I'm talking about, the fear of failure. And Jordan Peterson actually mentioned it himself in other subsequent interviews, that one of the things that he's so afraid of, and part of the reason he speaks the way he does, is he's afraid to fail. He's afraid to say that wrong thing. And I think that's a real tragedy. Because if we're not allowed to say the wrong thing and correct ourselves, instead what happens is people will jump on that wrong thing and use it to terrorize you and rip you apart. And I think that's a mistake. I think we should be allowed to say the wrong thing and correct ourselves. Like if I say something that's racist or sexist or whatever, I don't mind if somebody points out that I'm flawed in my arguments. But I don't like to be just ripped apart for saying the wrong thing without any valid criticism to back it up. There's no lesson to be learned there. There's no lesson to be learned from just tearing people apart for making simple mistakes. And this is why we have to change. This political correctness is all about catering to people's feelings and trying to prevent people from doing the wrong thing. And that's why I'm so against it. Because we need to be able to do the wrong thing in order to learn the right thing. I'd like to hear your opinion about this. I can be completely wrong. But tell me if I'm wrong. And tell me why I'm wrong. So this has been Socially Triggered. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for listening. And please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you.